Okay, welcome to a championship version of Into the Channel, a podcast primarily about women's football. Before we hit the pitch, if you enjoy the show or love women's football as much as your boys do, come rock with us. Subscribe or follow YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you like to watch or listen. Comments, ratings, reviews, always appreciated. Let us know how we're doing at ITC_pod on X, at Into the Channel pod on Threads. I am your host, Dino DeCespedes. And as always, I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Grant Engel. What is up, man?
Feeling fantastic. Feeling victorious, if you will. Feeling like we saw some things before they happened, if you will.
You know, that's starting to become a trend at the ITC. Obviously, big game last night. And you know what, buddy? We did it. Generations from now, no way to know if the USA's Concacaf W Gold Cup triumph will end up having more to do with your creativity around setting formations, or your visionary ideas around constructing the perfect starting 11, or perhaps the historians of the future will listen back to our keys to the game and decide that those were what pushed this U.S. women's national team back up to the absolute apex of women's football. Either way, we did it. Total team effort, 23 players, dedicated coaches committed to the cause, countless supporters who never wavered, and a couple of podcasters with nothing more than microphones, takes, and a shared vision. I'm going to skip the part where I ask you where you want to get started. USA 1, Brazil 0. What did you see in this one?
Microphones, takes, and a shared vision. Put it on my tombstone.
Let's go.
I do want to start, not to be a bummer, but I think you have to mention it. These things happen in sports. We have to acknowledge that it was a super bummer that Brazilian defender and leader Rafael had to miss this match with a foot injury. You hate to see a cup final taken away from a great player like that. It clearly had an adverse effect on Brazil's ability to play from the back line and defend with that apex skill that they had been doing like throughout most of the tournament. Yep. So that sucked. But like I said, these things happen in football. I don't think any of the players on the pitch for Brazil are going to lean on it like it's an excuse, but it should be said, like it's absolutely a factor. With that said, looking at USA's starting 11, I liked it a lot. I thought there was some reasonable discourse online, and I kind of felt the same way, that playing Rose Lavelle on the wing, it doesn't fit quite right. She's a great player. I just feel like you're not taking advantage of all of her natural abilities when you put her out there.
Well, a couple things on Lavelle. I think she had a touch at like the 15-minute mark, and I think that might have been the first time where in game they mentioned Rose Lavelle. And there was another play where I think it might have been Dunn or Coffey who kind of sent a ball upfield for her, and she was open for like a fraction of a second and then no chance. Like she got shut down super quickly. So yeah, playing her out of position, not the best look, but I thought the lineup was interesting. Yeah. When it was announced, social media was up in arms a little bit, but I was kind of like, I like it. Like I think the formation was a little funky, but I liked the 11 that Twila Kilgore put forth. I thought there was a good balance. Vets, young talent, and a look that really there was no tape on. So I was into it.
I agree. In the larger sense, I absolutely agree with that. So let's get this celebratory beer ski going.
Whoa, buddy.
What?
It's not every day that the USA triumphs in the Concacaf W Gold Cup.
Yeah. Wow. So let's get it poppin'. A sound. A sweet sound. This is the greatest day of my life.
Tastes like victory.
Damn right. So let's not focus on the picking of nits with Rose Lavelle out there on the wing. I'm going to pass the baton to you, but I'm going to do it on this positive note. Tierna Davidson has to be on the field in the starting 11 in every important match moving forward. I think it goes without saying. Naomi Girma, auto start. As the great Dino DeCespedes likes to say, in Sharpie, and then you figure out the rest of the lineup around Girma. Davidson is a perfect center back combo with Girma. And if you're only going to play 3 defenders, just play the left-footed Davidson on the left. I'm planting my flag on this. Her instincts, the obvious skill, the motor, the smarts. Davidson has all of that. I think you got to have her on the field because creating that elite defense for USA gets everything rolling up front.
Yeah, 100%. She was great. Team defending, really, I think deserves a shout. And I think we've got some stuff on that later. As the match kicked off, though, I thought Brazil gave the U.S. some problems early. I think that's fair to say in the feel-out rounds. Antonia, Porcilio, Sampaio all had really solid looks at goal early. But again, credit to the U.S. for holding Brazil in check despite, that positive start from Brazil. I'm not sure if the U.S. came out a little tight since this was the final or if the new lineup just took a minute to gel. Either way, Lori Lindsey, shout out to her. She was all over it. 5th minute, she commented on the U.S. needing to slow themselves down. That was a quote. Mm-hmm. Later in the first half, she mentioned the U.S. needs to better manage their emotions. I thought she was on point there as well. And a little bit later, she talked about the U.S. needing to employ more patience while on the ball. Before we scoot ahead, another quick note on Lori Lindsey, who was great again in this one. Not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 touch tights from the legend.
Yes, let's go.
Anyone out there doing a shot every time she dropped one of those had themselves a night. 40th minute, 61st minute for the brace. Hattie comes in at the 81st minute and she gets her 4th right before the death. 94th minute, she slides it in right before the final whistle, digs deep and delivers her final plea for the U.S. women to remain touch tight. Like I said, total team effort. This required all of us stepping up, and Lori Lindsey, she brought it tonight.
We win as a team, we lose as a team. Mm-hmm. And in this case, Lori Lindsey absolutely pulling her weight. Like you said, shout out to the legend here. I'm going to take a stab at something here, and I may sound ridiculous doing this. Anybody who's watched the program before knows that Dino De Cespedes is the boxing expert on this podcast. I've watched some boxing, talked to Dino about it, so I'm going to clumsily try to use some boxing terminology here. If we were scoring each 10-minute interval as boxing rounds, I think Brazil probably won both of the first 2 rounds 10-9. Mm-hmm. They were landing the punches. They were aggressive. They were moving the ball up and down the field. Duda Sampaio's free kick in the 10th minute had filthy bend to it. Like, I know last week against when they beat Mexico 3-0, I referred to Antonio's goal as, quote, some Roberto Carlos stuff. But Sampaio's attempt gave me the exact same feels. That thing, it had a late bend to it, too. It was already curling a little bit, and it had like that little extra dive to it.
Yeah.
Brazil's manager very clearly, Elias, he very clearly thought that went in. Like he faked out. You could see Yaya comes running up behind him and you're like, yeah. And they're like, no, sorry. And he was like, he tried to front, like play it off like, no, it was just a really good attempt.
Yeah. Okay.
But I could see why he thought that. That free kick from Sampaio was something special. In the 15th minute, Naomi Girma played a ball back to Alyssa Nair, who probably should have just taken like one touch and blasted it forward with like some sense of urgency. But she waited way too long. The Brazilian press is up there right away. Nair's pass gets deflected. It kind of bounces around a little bit. And there's Gabby Nunez, and she ripped a shot from right around the 18, but it was just over the bar. Missed the target on that. But I thought Brazil's press looked good. And then over into the 22nd minute, early in the 3rd round, if I'm gonna really stick with this boxing analogy, Nunez got through again in the 22nd minute off a throw-in where it looked like USA was defending probably a little too casually, but she hits it over the crossbar again. Pretty good strike. But after that, it felt like U.S. started to kind of take control for some good stretches. As the legend Lori Lindsey said, like they started to be a little more patient on the ball. They were able to hold the ball a little more. It felt like they kind of started to rack up some winning rounds themselves. They were getting numbers forward. They were getting down the flanks. And I'll say to Brazil's credit, USA was forcing them to make some kind of tough defensive plays, and Brazil was able to make them.
For me, something changed right around the 30-minute mark. I had it in my notes. There was sort of a 50-50 ball right at the halfway line that Corbin Albert just kind of stepped in front of, and awesome run from her. And then a super nifty pass up ahead to Alex Morgan. A little bit too heavy on the pass. Luciana beats her to it. But in my notes, I wrote, game's really warming up. This is right around the 30-minute mark, to your point. So right at the end of the 3rd round. In reality, though, it was the U.S. who was warming up at that point. The U.S. attack to that point, pretty straightforward. Pretty basic, pretty easy to defend if you're Brazil. They kind of saw us coming. I mean, nothing out of the box. But as soon as Corbin Albert makes this run from pretty deep, I think that sent a little baby shiver down the collective spine of Brazil, kind of making it clear that the U.S. was going to be dangerous from a lot of different spots, and we were going to mix it up. So it felt like the game really opened up at that 30-minute mark. On defense, another really clever tactical change. The USA at this point decides they're not going to let Brazil just pass the ball wherever they want in the central channel anymore. All tournament, we've seen Brazil kind of motion, creating space. The U.S. was like, nah, we're going to pack the center of the field. If you're going to beat us, you're going to beat us up the sideline, where we're happy to go one-on-one with anybody that you have. We can run with you, defend you, and press you just one-on-one. So if you beat us that way, good on you. But they weren't going to let Brazil just knock the ball around the center of the field. And it kind of felt like Brazil didn't have an answer for that. Like they really got frustrated.
I think you're totally right. When you pack the center of the field, you kind of take away your opponent's ability to use that like dazzling skill. Once you make it more difficult to play like 1-2s, and then I'm going to try to dribble past you, or I'm going to beat you one-on-one in the middle of the field, and now you have multiple defenders in there and you're rushing onto the players. Now they can't get that open space to rip a wonder strike, which, 8 of the Brazilian players out there, maybe all 10 of the field players are capable of doing it. Shit, Luciana might be capable of doing it if you gave her a shot. Who knows? Brazilian players, you already know what time it is. I will say the drawback to that is if you give away a foul in the center of the pitch, you might give away a dangerous free kick. See that Sampaio kick. But I like that USA, to your point, was like, we'll take that gamble. If you beat us like that, good for you.
There was definitely a turning point where it felt like every pass from somebody in the middle of the field to another Brazilian player in the middle of the field had 2 U.S. defenders converging on it. And again, we talked about team defense. And actually, it's something we touched on a little bit last week with like what was going to be the defensive game plan. You know, Tierna Davidson and Naomi Girma, those are only just 2 players. But we definitely need a defensive mindset for more than just those 2. And at that point, any pass was getting defenders like converging on it and then great rotations behind it. And the U.S. defensively was just cooking.
Yeah, I totally agree. And when you talk about the players who we needed to be like defensive minded, defensive focused outside of the back 4, let's talk about it. Sam Coffey. Integral in the build-up play, but also just swarming for the ball out there. And you know your boys on the ITC love the build-up play. So leading up to the goal, Nair plays the ball out, long pass. Lavelle gets a head on it. It goes toward Horan. Horan's not able to totally win the 50-50 ball. And the ball kind of like sputters away from Horan and the player that she was fighting for it with. And Sam Coffey makes like a 5 or 6 yard run and just on a line, just boom, this is mine now. I'm collecting this. I'm getting into a little bit of space. She's right around the half line. She knew exactly where to get it over to Trinity Rodman. She gets it there, and Rodman stumbles a little bit. And great job by Chris Whittingham on the call, pointing that out, that the turf monster got Trinity a little bit on that play. But Trinity Rodman is such a spectacular fucking athlete that even though she lost her footing a little bit while chasing it down, she still is able to stay calm. She gets there. She keeps it on the end line. And then the key, in my opinion, as a guy who knows maybe just a little bit about football, is she waits. She draws in that second defender to come try to close her down. And boom, she passes it right over to Emily Fox, who is in just a mile of space. Emily Fox hits the cross perfectly onto Lindsey Horan's forehead. And yes, she buries it. Luciana never had a chance. It was USA 1. It was Brazil 0. But also, it was Dino's keys to the game 1 and the haters 0. And let me tell you, we don't really have any haters on this podcast, but it's just always a fun thing to say. The lineup was great. And I just, as soon as Lindsey Horan scored, I go, Dino knew it. We needed that one from her.
Yeah. I'm just going to go ahead and play the audio from last week.
Let's go.
So my first key to the game, to beat Brazil, we're going to really need something from Lindsey Horan in this one, whether it's an assist or 2 or a big time goal in a big time spot. You know, we saw her do it in the World Cup against the Netherlands in a massive spot after the little tiff with Van de Donk in a match that we were down in, you know, and I think we didn't score out. So that was the one goal in that match also. So to me, Lindsey Horan, that's my first key.
I agree with you on Horan. I like Horan as the veteran starter who has to kind of carry the load, steady everybody. I mean, this is going to be some players' first, like very, very important national team final. She's going to have to be a calming presence there.
Quick clarifier on Horan. I think she's got to do more than be the veteran calming presence in the game. I think she actually has to produce.
I like it.
Not saying that, and I'm not doing this fucking stupid sports radio, you know, like, no, I'm not calling out Lindsey Horan. She's fucking awesome.
Clutch Gene?
I don't know if there were Kobe out there. No, I think we're going to just need the goals. We're going to need the goals. We're going to need the assists. And I think she's a go-to player for the U.S. And she's 100% capable. To rephrase, I think it would be tough to win if she doesn't notch a goal or an assist. So she's a key in that sense. So I think she's got to do a little bit more than to just kind of be a calming presence. I think we were on point. A couple of those keys were on point. Anybody that wants to go back and fact check that, it's available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you like to watch or listen. And, to the haters, the one or two of you on YouTube that have thoughts and takes of your own, we appreciate it. We appreciate all commentary and, all the different viewpoints. Props to our watchers and listeners who, even when they disagree with us vehemently, there's always good energy to it. Like, I think there's always enthusiasm about the game. So we absolutely encourage, all of that discourse. I want to rewind real quick to your Sam Coffey point, because what a point in time to have your best, most impactful game. Mm-hmm. She's somebody that stuck out in some of the group stage matches, but I thought she was excellent in the final. Tremendous pressure, tremendous energy. Didn't feel like she made any real bad mistakes. Just solid, high intensity football. I mean, she's got me tucking my shirt into my basketball shorts, and I think that's just going to be what I do from here on out. I mean, we got to represent. we got to honor the god Sam Coffey out here on the ITC. She had a great game. I loved that she was involved in obviously the biggest play of the game. Getting that started. The ball from Rodman to Fox, you mentioned it, super smart, super savvy. Fox's kind of cross felt like it was in the air for 45 minutes, but right on point. It makes it easy for Horan. I felt bad for Porcilio on that play, who is a striker for Brazil and was kind of like matched up with Horan and just lost her. Even when Horan's making contact, she's like kind of backing away from it. I think she just was totally like out of position. And that's the risk you run when you commit too many players forward. And now you get stuck with a striker having to defend a Lindsey Horan header off a perfect Emily Fox cross. But credit to the US, they earned it. Big moment, big finish from Horan. And your boy called it. I don't know. Keys to the game. I kind of nailed it. So victory lap for me.
Yeah, dude, fucking 2 victory laps. I appreciate that Twila Kilgore, and you kind of mentioned it. I really appreciate that she listened to our advice from the last episode, and but she made her own tweaks. Like I had suggested, putting Crystal Dunn in the defensive midfield and keeping Niswanger in. She was like, Grant, I like that idea, but I think I'll put Dunn on the left. That's fine. Twila, dude, I like it. Fair play.
We also, I think we're lined up with bringing Smith and Shaw off the bench. And speaking of Smith coming in, the Alex Morgan almost second yellow. That got the old blood pressure elevated, we'll say. I was just like, oh my God. Alex Morgan, she's got a little knucklehead to her game every now and then. I feel like she kind of like loses a little focus here and there. That was just a weird decision. Very risky, that would have turned the game completely on its head.
That was incredibly sketchy, man. I think 50-50 is generous. That felt 60-40. I was like, heart sinks, like, oh boy, like I think this is happening. Like she cut it as close as you could possibly cut that.
Yeah, you sort of feel like if it's any other player, that's a yellow straight away. And she had just gotten the yellow prior on another kind of like low leverage play, we'll call it.
Sure.
Brazil looked off their game, for the final 60 plus minutes of the match. And I think especially after giving up a goal right before halftime, minus a few stretches here and there. And that's why I found it really odd that Brazil coach Artur Elias waits till the 65th minute to bring on Jasa, waits till the 80th minute to bring on Debinha. I know this is one of those things that grinds your gears. It's like, why are we waiting till there's like single digits left in this match? Also, just 4 subs across 3 substitution windows, which meant no chance to get Ari Borges in either. We've mentioned before that these coaches know a hell of a lot more about their players than we do, but curious substitution pattern, no real adjustment to the USA's defensive adjustment, kind of packing in the center of the field. And it feels like Elias might have dropped the ball in this one. I don't know. Any thoughts?
I think it's fair criticism. I think anytime you lose a final 1-0, we're talking about a nip and tuck game. We're talking about a match that could be won or lost in the margins. That's what the manager is for. Like, ultimately it's the players on the field who decide this thing. But when you have close matches or games in any sport, I think it is widely pretty agreed upon that those marginal changes that a manager or a coach can make, they have a significant impact, and they can have an outsized impact in a 1-game sample size. Speaking of that, let's talk about Twila Kilgore again. Lynn Williams on for Rose Lavelle in the 46th minute to play Williams at her natural position on the wing. Sophia Smith on for Alex Morgan at the 59th minute in the nick of time, so Morgan didn't collect a second yellow. Shaw on for Coffey in the 71st. Midge Purse on for Rodman in the 71st. And Casey Kruger on for Crystal Dunn in the 86th. I thought every single one of those was a combination of bringing on intelligence, game management, speed, and aggressiveness, all in like different spots of the field. You do mention one thing that kind of annoys me a little bit is bringing on players like super late, only to get a few minutes of run. But I liked the Casey Kruger for Dunn sub at 86. Well, what were you thinking there?
Well, I mean, I thought Dunn had a solid first 50, 55 minutes. And then I feel like she started to lose steam a little bit. She was getting beat. It went from like her winning most of the battles to then it became a toss-up, like once we got to 50, 55. So I was a little worried about Dunn there. But Kruger specifically coming in at 86 for Dunn, she has that massive kind of header away to kind of save a goal. And I'm just not sure if Dunn would have been there like at the 96th minute. Kruger was all over it. And if that ball reaches Adriana, who was right there and who had snuck past Lynn Williams, that's the equalizer. Like that was their one last, it's like in these matches, it always feels like there's the one last. And that was it. Credit to Kruger, credit to Twila Kilgore. Perfect decision there to spot that. And Kruger was right there to kind of send it away. Like at that point, I'm just like, Twila, she don't miss. She's just like on fire right now.
She is on a roll, man. I think, we've talked about the last couple episodes. I think that makes her 15 for 15 in the last 3 matches. I think every sub has been great in like gotta have it time, essentially. And I'm with you on Brazil's subs. Like, it's hard to argue that what Elias did throughout the tournament based on how Brazil played was good. Like, like you mentioned, we're not crushing the guy, but when you lose, you got to look at something and just think what could have possibly contributed to it. Did he cost them the game? Probably not. USA played really well. Could he have helped more with some of those subs? Using 4 subs in the 3 windows is just not a great look when you lose the match. And so I have a very important question to ask you. What do you think the street value of that substitution is on the open market? For sale sign, 1 Concacaf W Gold Cup final substitution. Mint condition, never used.
I mean, it's got to be worth the weight of the trophy in gold, I would imagine. I mean, I'm going to take it up a level because how about Debinha's late free kick to Jasa where she almost flicks it in and you're just like, you had these 2 fucking players sitting, like, just sitting doing nothing for an hour and a half. Like, I was happy to see the U.S. women's national team win, but I'm ultimately watching this and analyzing the match and, trying to see the decisions and the strategies on both sides. That one was dumbfounding.
Yeah.
And that one play, that Debinha to Jasa chance, kind of encapsulated the whole thing. This was not the right approach. And, definitely not going to kill the guy. They were in that match all the way through. When you line up the 2 columns, you're just like, okay, advantage Brazil, advantage USA. I think on the coaching, it's like monster advantage to the USA. Kilgore, tremendous game plan. The lineup was on point. The subs were on point. And Elias, I don't think was, didn't score as highly, we'll say.
I think that's fair to say. And I think in Brazilian football, where, we talk about like U.S. soccer, social media and things like that. I always laugh when, people talk about the pressure in like U.S. sports or like Team USA. I would bet any amount of money that there was an Argentinian equivalent to Skip Bayless telling everybody how Lionel Messi didn't have the clutch gene, right? Like that, those people absolutely exist in other countries in the sport that they care most about. So I'm going to guess in Brazilian football, there's probably a level of accountability. And I think Elias, he's just going to have to wear that one.
No way around it, but good tournament for them.
Oh yeah, still.
Really good showing. I think they're going to be a team kind of to be reckoned with. There was one moment too where, obviously like for years, Brazil was like Marta and them girls, and I think they're definitely kind of carving out their own, identity and seeing like Tarciane, their defender, mark Alex Morgan on a USA corner and like just be 5.5, 6 inches taller than her. I'm just like, oh goodness gracious. And she can fly. She got a little lost on the Horan goal. So they still definitely have some growing up to do, especially defensively. Offensively, they can perform magic out there. They just kind of like lost their bearings a little bit in the final. I think the final kind of got to them. USA had some counter moves that I don't think they're prepared for. And to your earlier point, coaching, winning the margins does come down to adjustments. It's like other teams making adjustments. What's your adjustment to the adjustment? And if you don't have anything, it's like the game is only going to slip farther and farther away. And I think we actually saw that in the second half. There was a sequence where Duda Santos, she takes a shot. This was like the 56th minute. So still a ton of football left to be played. But Brazil was playing like we were in like extra time at the end of the match. Duda Santos takes an ill-advised shot from like 25 yards out. That one gets denied. Then Tarciana gets a hold of the ball, and she takes a shot from like 35 yards out. And I'm like, if Brazil's going to play like this, like they have no shot. This is just not going to work against this U.S. side. They're just getting pushed further and further away from the goal. It just was not going to be the way that they were going to beat this U.S. team.
That's a really good call. And I think when you have a player, if you are able to have a player like Rafaele out there, who's like in their early 30s and is an experienced player, actually living the Dino dream, Rafaele, a few years at Arsenal, now at the Orlando Pride. But when you have her leadership and her veteran presence out there, you wonder how much of that stuff happens. Or if after the first one, she kind of looks around and goes, hey, everybody, let's play within ourselves and let's play the football we know we need to play.
Yeah, they were sorely missing that. Again, congrats to the USA. Big run through the tournament. Bounce back after a 2-0 loss to Mexico. So props to them. I wanted to do a little quick USWNT look ahead. Wednesday, July 24th, Paris, France. We're going to see this team, well, a trimmed down version of it, back in action, chasing an Olympic gold medal. What do you think we can take from this tournament into that Olympics?
I think you really walk away from this tournament with a lot of good takeaways. Jaden Shaw won the Best Player award, not the Best Young Player. She won Best Player. That's pretty strong. Nair wins Best Goalkeeper. I think, after that penalty kick performance against Canada, you already know what time it is there.
That's huge.
Olivia Moultrie played really well in the group stage. We already talked about Sam Coffey. She played great. Tierna Davidson really announced herself. Emily Fox is probably cemented as the right back.
Yeah.
I think another thing I'm walking away from this tournament with, and, please, for any of the U.S. women's national team super fans who are watching, correct me if I'm wrong, but what really stood out to me, because I think maybe Rodman has done this over the course of her career, she was awesome at tracking back on defense and making important interventions in our defensive third, and then using her athleticism to still get forward, to still win almost every foot race. So kind of walking away from this tournament with, okay, the young players, they got good competitive experience. They experienced a 2-0 loss to Mexico. There are a lot of things that you're just walking away with, okay, good experience, and everybody can look at each other and say, we know how to win, which might sound crazy when you're talking about the U.S. women's national team, but not the way they were under the microscope after that World Cup. I think the young players being able to look at each other and say, we don't have to always talk about the bygone era of U.S. women's national team football. We know how to win.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point, because rewinding back just less than a year ago to the World Cup, kind of felt like the vets were on one bus and the young players were on another bus.
Yep.
And here in this tournament, felt like the players were pretty interchangeable. Dunn for Neiswanger, Morgan for Smith, Coffey, Lavelle. Like there was just so much across the board. And I thought it was pretty fitting that on the goal, it's Coffey to Rodman into Horan, and it's just like all these generations are just being bridged, and Morgan's right there. If the ball doesn't reach Horan. I thought it's been an excellent turn for Morgan.
Yeah.
Even if she hasn't lit it up from a goal standpoint, she's back to putting pressure on the defense, continual pressure on the defense. And she was right there next to Horan, attracting more defenders, opening up space. Horan gets a freaking totally free look at a header. She sends back the other way, and that ends up being the difference in the game. So really cool to see these young players get to learn how to win alongside some of the vets. And to your point, Jaden Shaw, player of the tournament, making massive impact.
Yeah.
And it really gives the coaching staff so much optionality with regard to, okay, we've talked about this, sort of in the Champions League, where different matchups necessitate different lineups and just different adjustments. In a quick turnaround tournament like that, being able to kind of different approaches, different lineups, different, pairings, I think is just massive. And then how could you not appreciate Alyssa Nair for what she did in this tournament? Safe to say, I think confidence, I'm just going to speak for my own personal fandom, my confidence in Alyssa Nair, not that it matters, is absolutely 100% back. Total gamer. You just wonder when you have such a down moment, like, the World Cup ending on that weird fluky penalty kick in Sweden, and then kind of a rough season NWSL wise, what kind of effect that's going to have. But man, did she shake that shit off in this tournament. She made some big stops against Brazil. Yep. Great positioning. I think pretty much everything except the Sampaio free kick she had 100% covered. Like that free kick might have snuck in, but I mean, she's just playing really good, confident football. And, her confidence, her energy kind of permeates all the way out. I don't know. USA definitely, I think, trending back up at this point.
It's got to feel that way. And I cannot credit you enough for it felt like the old squad, and we're saying old squad, the World Cup squad was like two different buses of the vets and the young players. And then you had the documentary and like all the stuff kind of around that. Mm-hmm. You identified that so early, and I think one of the major lessons that I have taken from that World Cup specifically, and we've talked about it with the Spanish national team, is that the Spanish national team went through some shit together, and they love each other, and they're happy for each other's success. And I don't think the U.S. national team in the World Cup were like at odds with each other. I don't think you think that either. I don't think it's what you're saying. It's like the vets didn't like the young players. The young players didn't like the vets. It was just they were two kind of trains going on separate tracks almost. Yeah. And I think one of my big takeaways is it's probably really, really hard to win an elite football tournament when your culture is like that.
Yeah, I mean, you just need the trust, you need the chemistry. And I think it was a function of like not having a Concacaf W Gold Cup to really get the opportunity to gel.
Yeah.
A lot of those spots were penciled in, but I think all that's in the past now.
Yep.
We've successfully bridged these generations. Some players will age out. Some new players will kind of grab some of those spots. The last thing I'll say about the Olympics, I feel like a couple players, a Sam Coffey, I even think like a Lynn Williams. I know it's got to be 18, but that's going to be a tough task figuring out who's going to be in that 18. I think those are two players that have to be in that mix, even if, like you could maybe make Coffey's going to be a tough one to argue against, but I think Lynn Williams, we have so much offensive firepower, right. But what she brings, like her energy, her creativity, like she's just on a different wavelength. She's just seeing things that nobody else is seeing. And she still has the physical tools to like grab those opportunities as they come. She almost got on the score sheet in this one, offsides by a good amount, but I think it doesn't take away from her impact.
For sure.
Her unpredictability. She's just such an excellent change of pace. I think she's got to be on the, she's got to be within that 18. And then from there, like a couple spots are absolutely locked in. You got to imagine Germa, Davidson. It's going to be interesting to see what that final roster looks like. But I do feel like now that we figured out the generational piece and now that the chemistry is trending up, I really love that this tournament's just a few months away here. Camp's going to kick back in and we might get to see, some of those matchups that we've been talking about, USA, Spain, USA, France. Definitely exciting times.
For sure, man. And I'm not exactly sure on the whole formula. We'll pick it up as we go on like we always do. But you're going to have I think there's an abbreviated She Believes Cup. According to our old pals at FootMob, thank you to one of our pals in the audience for sending me an audio clip of how to pronounce that app. FOTMOB is the app. They don't give us any money, but I think you should download it. It's a helpful app, and it gives you the scores to a lot of these matches that we have a hard time finding sometimes. So according to the FootMob app, USA plays Japan on April 6th in the semifinal of the She Believes Cup, which leads me to believe that it's not like a full tournament. But that's going to be a competitive game. That's going to be a competitive camp because exactly to your point, with those Olympics coming up in 18 spots, you have to think everybody's going to be going real hard to make sure they lock themselves in to that 18.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't wait. All right. Coming up later this week, we've got a full episode NWSL preview that will drop before Friday night's NWSL Challenge Cup. That one's going down 8 p.m. Eastern, the Challenge Cup, not the pod. You can catch that one on Prime Video. Again, Challenge Cup, not the pod. Gotham FC versus San Diego Wave FC should be an absolute banger. Couple of big names that we just finished talking about and celebrating should be involved in that one. 2024 regular season kicks off in proper this Saturday, March 16th, when the Kansas City Current take on Portland Thorns FC. 1 p.m. kickoff for that one. And later this week, we'll drop our Champions League quarterfinal preview where we'll dissect all 4 monster matchups: Ajax Chelsea, Benfica Lyon, PSG BK Häcken, and the Clash of the Titans, Barcelona against those bullies from Bergen, SK Braun. That preview is going to be a 2-parter, which will be available again before Champions League ramps back up Tuesday, 19th of March. Going to be a busy week here at the ITC, my good man. So we got to stay ready. Anything else you want to hit before we get out of here?
Two quick ones related to Team USA. Kat Macario scored again for Chelsea in their victory over Everton in the Women's FA Cup. That's a good sign. You got to think that might be one of the 18 players on the roster. Mm-hmm. And we got to do it. So Lindsey Horan, the captain, ceremoniously is the last player to take the stage in a cup final for the winning team. Lindsey Horan gets the trophy, walks over to the side, and very clearly gestures for Becky Sauerbrunn to come over and lift the Concacaf W Gold Cup with her. Becky Sauerbrunn, 219 caps, 2 World Cup victories. An absolute legend. You got to think she is in that generation on the way out, but an absolutely legendary career, a stalwart in the defensive back line for some of the U.S.'s most incredible and dominating victories. So, Becky Sauerbrunn, thank you very much. We appreciate you. Awesome to see her kind of go out in competitive tournament play. Hopefully she gets a little bit of a retirement tour after this, but to see her go out in a competitive match like this, even as just somebody in the squad, really awesome to see.
Hell yeah. No, I mean, vet's bus, rookie's bus, coach's bus, Becky Sauerbrunn, she sits whichever fucking bus she wants to sit on. She's definitely earned it. All right, man, I think we did it. This has been another episode of Into the Channel. Remember, subscribe or follow Into the Channel, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you like to watch or listen, at ITC_pod on X, at Into the Channel pod on Threads. Big thanks to you for watching, listening, rocking with us through this entire CONCACAF W Gold Cup journey. And yeah, what else can we say? Just thrilled to have each and every one of you hanging out with us. Again, comments, ratings, reviews, always appreciated. Helps us improve the show. Big thank you as well to my co-host, Mr. Grant Engel, for being the last one to take the stage here on every episode of Into the Channel. Our captain. Thanks, man. I appreciate you.
That's high praise. Me and you, we are the Germa Davidson backline. We work better as a duo, my good man. Everybody, when you do your championship celebration, this might be a little late because we already won the championship. I didn't see Seltzer Baby anywhere in that locker room partaking in the festivities, but drink responsibly, but always celebrate the victories. See you guys next time.
Stay touch tight.